The paradox. No one explains. Being a good person might be the very thing destroying your life right now, and the most dangerous part is that no one ever warned you about it. You were taught to believe that kindness is always rewarded, that honesty builds protection around you, that if you give your best, life will eventually give back. But reality operates under a different code, one that is rarely explained, and even more rarely accepted. Look at your own experience without filters. There were moments when you stayed silent to avoid conflict, moments when you gave more than you had just to keep peace, moments when you tolerated behavior that you knew, deep down, you should not accept. And what was the result of that? Did respect increase, or did it quietly disappear? Did people value your presence more, or did they start expecting it as something guaranteed? This is where the paradox reveals itself. The very traits that were supposed to elevate you begin to expose you, not because they are wrong, but because they are incomplete. Goodness without awareness becomes permission. Kindness without boundaries becomes access. And patience, when not guided by strength, becomes tolerance for what should never be tolerated. There is a silent language that governs human behavior, and most people are not even conscious of it. It is not what you say that defines how others treat you. It is what you allow, what you reinforce, and what you tolerate repeatedly. Over time, people do not respond to your intentions. They respond to your patterns, and patterns reveal far more than words ever will. Machiavelli observed this reality centuries ago. In The Prince, chapter 18, he explains that men are driven not by moral ideals, but by outcomes and advantages. This means that, whether consciously or not, people are constantly evaluating where they can gain, where they can push, and where they must hold back. And when they sense no resistance, no consequence, no boundary, something shifts. Respect is replaced by opportunity. This is not always done with malicious intent. Some people exploit because they are strategic. Others do it because it is simply easier, and many do it because no one ever stopped them. But the effect is the same. The good person, the one who believed in fairness and reciprocity, becomes the one who gives more, accepts more, and receives less. And if you have ever felt that quiet exhaustion, that feeling of giving without return, of being present without being valued, of being understood only when it benefits others, then you are not imagining it. You are experiencing the consequence of a principle that no one taught you. The world does not automatically protect those who are good. It tests them. It tests how far you will go. It tests how much you will accept. It tests how long you will remain silent. And every time you pass those tests without resistance, a message is sent. Not through words, but through behavior. A message that says, you will stay, you will tolerate, you will continue. And once that message is understood, it becomes a pattern. And patterns are what define how you are treated. This is why the question you have been asking is incomplete. It is not enough to wonder why bad people take advantage of good people. That question keeps you in a passive position, as if you were only a victim of circumstance. But the deeper question forces a different kind of awareness. What are they seeing in you that makes them certain they can? Because once you confront that question honestly, everything begins to change. You stop looking only at what others are doing, and you start seeing what you are allowing. And that is where power begins to return. But to understand that fully, you must first face the belief that created this situation in the first place. The idea that being good is enough to be respected, an idea so deeply rooted that most people never question it, even when reality keeps proving otherwise. The invisible error. The illusion that goodness creates respect. You were taught a principle that sounds noble, but in practice can quietly sabotage your life. The belief that if you are good, respectful, patient, and fair, others will naturally treat you the same way. This idea feels right. It aligns with morality. It aligns with what you were told growing up. But it collapses the moment it meets real human behavior. Because people do not respond to who you are in essence. They respond to how you present yourself in action. And there is a difference between being a good person and being perceived as someone who must be respected. From an early age, you were conditioned to avoid conflict, to be understanding, to give others the benefit of the doubt. to prioritize harmony over confrontation. These traits, in isolation, are not weaknesses, but when they are expressed without balance, without boundaries, without the ability to withdraw or say no, they create a distorted signal. A signal that says you are safe to push, safe to test, safe to take from. And this is where the invisible error lives. Not in your intentions, but in your positioning. You can have the purest intentions and still be treated as someone expendable. You can act with integrity and still be overlooked. You can be kind and still be disrespected. Because respect is not granted based on your internal values. It is granted based on external perception. People observe consistency. They watch how you react when you are challenged, when you are ignored, when you are asked for more than you should give. And every time you accept what crosses your own limits, you teach them something. Not consciously, but clearly. You teach them how far they can go. This is why two people can have the same level of kindness, but receive completely different treatment. One is respected, the other is used. The difference is not in their morality. It is in their boundaries, in their presence, in the subtle but powerful message they transmit without speaking. Marco Aurélio, em Meditações, livro 6, parágrafo 30, reforça que o valor de homem não está no que ele deseja ser, mas no que ele demonstra através de suas ações constantes. And this is where most people fail to connect the dots. They focus on being good, but ignore how that goodness is interpreted. And the world does not interpret, it reacts. If your goodness comes without limits, it is not seen as strength. It is seen as availability. If your patience comes without consequence, it is not seen as maturity. It is seen as tolerance for anything, and once this perception is formed, it becomes difficult to reverse. This is why many people reach a point of silent frustration. They feel misunderstood, undervalued, even betrayed. But they cannot explain why. Because in their mind, they did everything right. They followed the rules they were taught. They gave, they helped, they endured. What they did not realize is that the rules were incomplete. The world does not reward goodness alone. It rewards clarity of position. It rewards those who know where they stand, what they accept, and what they refuse. And without that clarity, even the best intentions can lead to the worst outcomes. So the problem is not that you are a good person. The problem is that you believed goodness, by itself, would protect you. And once you see that clearly, another question begins to emerge, a more uncomfortable one. If people are not responding to your intentions but to your patterns, then what patterns have you been repeating without noticing? Because that is exactly what those who take advantage of others are looking for. And once you understand how they think, you begin to see that this was never random. The mind of those who take advantage, how manipulators think. You believe people take advantage by chance, by coincidence, or because you happen to cross paths with the wrong individuals. But that is not how it works. There is a pattern behind it, and more importantly, there is a mindset behind it. Those who take advantage of others are not always loud, aggressive, or obviously malicious. Many of them are observant, patient, and strategic. They do not act impulsively. They read, they analyze, they wait. And what are they looking for? They are looking for signals, not what you say, but how you behave when pressure is applied. How quickly you respond when someone asks for your time. How uncomfortable you become when you need to say no. How often you prioritize others even when it costs you something. These are not small details. These are patterns. And patterns, for someone with a manipulative mindset, are information. They notice who avoids confrontation. They notice who over-explains. They notice who apologizes even when they did nothing wrong. And once these signals are consistent, a silent conclusion is formed. This person will not resist. At this point, exploitation is no longer a risk. It becomes a calculated move. Machiavelli, in The Prince, chapter 15, makes it clear that men do not act based on virtue, but on necessity and advantage. This means that if someone sees an opportunity where there is no cost, no consequence, and no resistance, they will take it, not always out of cruelty, but because it is efficient. And this is where most people misunderstand manipulation. They imagine it as something dramatic, something obvious. But in reality, it is subtle. It begins with small tests, a request that crosses a limit, a delay in respect, a moment where your needs are ignored, and then comes the most important part, your response. If you adjust yourself to accommodate, if you minimize what you feel, if you justify their behavior instead of confronting it, something locks in. The manipulator does not need to guess anymore. They now know. They know you will adapt instead of resist. They know you will tolerate instead of confront. They know you will stay even when it costs you. And from that moment on, the dynamic changes. Respect is replaced with calculation. Connection is replaced with convenience. You are no longer seen as someone to be valued, but as someone to be managed. This is why many manipulative people can appear kind at first. They mirror your behavior. They create comfort. They build trust. But behind that, they are collecting data. Every reaction you give becomes a piece of information that helps them understand how far they can go. And once they have that map, they move with precision. They will not push where there is resistance. They will not insist where there is consequence. But they will expand exactly where there is silence. This is not chaos. This is structure. Psychology explains that human beings naturally seek the path of least resistance. And when your behavior consistently shows that you will not create friction, you become that path. Not because you are weak, but because you are predictable. And predictability, without strength, is vulnerability. This is the moment where you need to shift your perspective. Stop seeing yourself only as someone who was taken advantage of. Start seeing the system that made it possible. Because once you understand how they think, you begin to realize something deeper. They are not only choosing you, you are, without realizing it, allowing the pattern to repeat. And that leads to a harder truth, one that most people resist. If the world responds to strength more than to goodness, then what truly creates respect in the first place? Machiavelli would explain it this way: respect comes from strength, not purity. There is a truth that most people avoid because it challenges everything they were taught to believe. The world does not operate on moral ideals. It operates on perception of power. You can be honest, loyal, and genuinely good, and still be overlooked or even disrespected if there is no strength behind your presence. Not physical strength, but psychological, emotional, and behavioral strength. The kind that sets limits without hesitation, that withdraws without fear, that refuses without guilt. Machiavelli makes this distinction with brutal clarity. In The Prince, chapter 17, he explains that it is safer to be feared than loved if one cannot be both. This does not mean becoming cruel or cold. It means understanding that respect is not built on how much you give, but on what happens when you stop giving. People observe consequences. They observe what happens when they cross a line. If nothing happens, if there is no shift in your behavior, no withdrawal, no boundary, then your kindness loses weight. It becomes predictable. And what is predictable is rarely respected. This is why being loved is not enough. Love, when not supported by strength, becomes fragile. It depends on others choosing to value you. Respect does not depend on choice. It depends on recognition. Recognition of limits. Recognition of standards. Recognition of what you will not tolerate. And here is where most people fail. They try to be understood instead of being clear. They explain their feelings, justify their boundaries, negotiate their own limits, hoping the other person will agree. But respect is not negotiated. It is established. Marco Aurélio, em Meditações, livro 8, parágrafo 48, reforça que homem deve manter sua dignidade, não pelo que os outros concedem, mas pelo que ele sustenta dentro de si, and that internal standard must be visible through action, not through words, not through intention, but through behavior that does not bend under pressure. When you tolerate what goes against your own values, you weaken your position, not because others are inherently malicious, but because you remove the reason for them to adjust. If there is no consequence, there is no incentive to change. This is why some people are naturally respected even without saying much. Their presence communicates limits. Their behavior communicates certainty. There is no need for confrontation because the boundary is already clear, and others, no matter how kind, no matter how generous, struggle to be taken seriously. Because their kindness comes with uncertainty. It can be pushed, it can be negotiated, it can be ignored. The difference is not in who they are as individuals, it is in what they tolerate. Machiavelli understood that human behavior is shaped by advantage. If someone perceives that respecting you requires effort, but disrespecting you has no cost, the choice becomes obvious. This is not about becoming feared in the sense of intimidation. It is about becoming someone who cannot be easily dismissed, ignored, or used. Someone whose absence is felt. Someone whose boundaries are not suggestions, but realities. And once you understand this, something inside you begins to shift. You stop trying to prove your value through sacrifice. You stop believing that giving more will fix the lack of respect. You start recognizing that what protects your value is not how much you offer, but how firmly you stand. But this leads to another question, one that goes even deeper. If respect is shaped by perception, then what exactly are you communicating without realizing it? Because everything you do, every reaction, every decision is sending a signal, and those who know how to read it are already responding. The signal you emit, how your goodness becomes an invitation. Every interaction you have is sending a message, even when you are not speaking. Before words, before explanations, before intentions, people are reading something deeper. They are reading your signals. And those signals are not built from what you believe about yourself. They are built from what you consistently demonstrate. You may believe you are kind, patient, understanding. But what others perceive depends on how that kindness is expressed. If it comes without limits, without resistance, without consequence, it is no longer interpreted as strength. It becomes accessibility. And accessibility, when unchecked, becomes permission. This is where most people lose awareness. They think their internal values are visible. They think others can see their intentions. But human behavior does not work that way. People do not interpret your inner world. They respond to your external patterns. Your tone when you are challenged. Your posture when you are interrupted. Your reaction when someone crosses a line. These are the signals that define how you are treated. Psychology has long shown that perception is formed in seconds and then reinforced through repetition. Once someone categorizes you as flexible, accommodating, or non-confrontational, they begin to interact with you based on that label, and unless something disrupts that pattern, it solidifies. You do not need to say yes every time. You do not need to agree to be seen as cooperative. But if your behavior suggests that you will, people will assume it as a constant. This is why two people can face the same situation and receive completely different treatment. One is respected, the other is overlooked. The difference is not in what they say, it is in what they communicate without words. There is a concept in behavioral psychology that explains this clearly. Reinforcement. Whatever behavior is not corrected tends to repeat. Whatever behavior is tolerated tends to expand. If someone interrupts you and you say nothing, you reinforce that interruption. If someone disrespects your time and you adjust yourself, you reinforce that behavior. If someone crosses a boundary and you minimize it, you teach them that the boundary is not real. And this is where your goodness becomes an invitation. Not because you intended it, but because your actions created a pattern where others feel safe to take more. Machiavelli understood that power is often silent. It is not always in what is said, but in what is implied. In The Prince, chapter 21, he highlights that perception shapes reality more than truth itself, and perception is built through repetition of behavior. If your presence communicates uncertainty, people will test you. If your presence communicates stability, people will respect distance. This is not about becoming rigid or aggressive. It is about becoming clear. Clear in your reactions, clear in your limits, clear in your standards. Because the moment your signals change, the responses you receive begin to change as well. But before that shift happens, there is something you must confront. A cost that has been accumulating quietly. A cost that most people only realize when they are already exhausted. Because every time you ignore your own limits to maintain peace, something inside you is being lost. And the longer it continues, the harder it becomes to recognize who you were before you started accepting less than you deserved. The hidden cost. When being good becomes self-betrayal. There is a point where being good stops being a virtue and starts becoming a quiet form of self-betrayal, and most people do not realize when they cross that line. It does not happen suddenly. It happens slowly, through small decisions that seem harmless in the moment but accumulate over time. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay silent when something inside you asks to speak. You adjust your boundaries to avoid discomfort. At first it feels like maturity. It feels like patience. It feels like emotional control. But beneath that surface, something else is happening. You are teaching yourself that your limits are negotiable, that your needs can wait, that your discomfort is less important than maintaining harmony. And the more you repeat this pattern, the more disconnected you become from your own sense of self. This is the hidden cost. It is not only that others take advantage of you, it is that you begin to lose clarity about what you deserve. You begin to question your own reactions. You begin to normalize what once felt wrong. And over time, this creates a silent tension inside you. A tension that does not explode, but slowly drains your energy, your confidence, your presence. You feel tired, but you cannot explain why. You feel frustrated, but you do not express it. You feel overlooked, but you continue to give. This is not kindness anymore. This is erosion. Psychology describes this as internal conflict between values and behavior. When your actions repeatedly go against what you truly believe, your mind creates discomfort. But instead of correcting the behavior, many people suppress the feeling. They convince themselves that it is not important, that it is better to keep peace, that it is not worth the confrontation. But the cost remains. Marco Aurelio, in Meditações Livro 4, paragraph 49, reminds that a man who acts against his own nature weakens himself more than any external force could. And this weakness is not visible to others at first. It is internal. It affects how you think, how you react, how you carry yourself. And others can sense it, not consciously, but intuitively. Because when you no longer defend your own boundaries, your presence changes. There is hesitation where there should be certainty. There is doubt where there should be clarity. And that shift, even if subtle, alters how people respond to you. They do not see resistance. They do not expect consequence. They do not adjust their behavior. And so the cycle continues. This is why many people reach a breaking point, not because of one event, but because of accumulation. Years of small concessions, small silences, small compromises that slowly built a reality where they feel used, undervalued, and unseen. And when they finally react, it feels explosive. But it is not sudden. It is delayed. What could have been corrected early through clarity becomes a deeper conflict that requires reconstruction. This is the moment where you need to understand something essential. Being good does not mean abandoning yourself. Being patient does not mean tolerating everything. Being understanding does not mean accepting what violates your own standards. There is a difference between giving and losing yourself. And once that line is crossed repeatedly, you are no longer acting from strength. You are acting from avoidance. Avoidance of conflict. Avoidance of discomfort. Avoidance of being seen as difficult. But the price of that avoidance is your own integrity. And once you see that clearly, another realization begins to form. The problem was never your goodness. The problem was the way it was being expressed. Because there is a form of goodness that protects you, that commands respect, that creates balance. And there is another form that leaves you exposed. Understanding that difference changes everything. The difference that changes everything. Intelligent goodness versus naive goodness. At this point, you might be asking yourself if the solution is to stop being a good person, to become colder, harder, distant. But that is not the answer. The real transformation happens when you understand that not all goodness is the same. There is a form of goodness that is guided by awareness, and there is another that is driven by unconscious need. Naive goodness is reactive. It seeks approval, avoids discomfort, and prioritizes acceptance over truth. It gives without evaluating, tolerates without questioning, and adapts without limits. It is not rooted in strength. It is rooted in fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood. And because of that, it becomes predictable. It says yes too quickly. It forgives too easily. It stays too long. Not because it is virtuous, but because it is afraid to disrupt the image of being good. Intelligent goodness, on the other hand, operates from a completely different foundation. It is not driven by the need to be liked. It is guided by clarity. It gives, but it observes. It helps, but it evaluates. It connects, but it selects. It understands that not everyone deserves access to the same level of your energy, your time, or your presence. This is where most people resist, because they associate selectivity with selfishness. They believe that setting limits means becoming less of a good person. But the truth is the opposite. When you give without discernment, you dilute your value. When you tolerate without standards, you weaken your position. And when you refuse to differentiate who deserves your best, you end up giving it to those who will use it, not value it. Machiavelli understood that virtue without strategy is ineffective. In The Prince, chapter 18, he emphasizes that a wise man must know how to act according to necessity, not only according to ideals. This means your goodness must adapt to reality, not ignore it. Intelligent goodness does not abandon empathy. It refines it. It does not remove kindness. It directs it. It does not eliminate generosity. It protects it. This is why some people remain kind and still command respect, because their kindness is not automatic. It is intentional. It is measured. It is supported by boundaries that are clear and consistent. They do not explain their limits repeatedly. They demonstrate them once. They do not argue to be understood. They act to be recognized. And once that pattern is established, something shifts in how others interact with them. There is less testing. There is less pushing. There is more distance where there should be distance. Not because they became aggressive, but because they became defined. Defined in what they accept. Defined in what they refuse. Defined in how they respond when those lines are crossed. This clarity removes ambiguity, and without ambiguity, there is less space for manipulation. The mistake most people make is thinking that being good means being available. But availability without structure leads to exploitation. True strength lies in controlled access, and this is where your transformation begins. Not by changing who you are, but by changing how you express it. Because once your goodness is supported by boundaries, it stops being an invitation. It becomes a standard. And that standard is what separates those who are respected from those who are used. But even with this understanding, there is one tool that defines everything. A simple word that most people struggle to use, yet it has the power to reshape every relationship you have. The power of no. The limit that reveals who truly respects you. There is one word that can change the entire structure of your life, and most people avoid it as if it were dangerous. Not because it is harmful, but because it forces a confrontation that they have spent years trying to avoid. No, it seems simple, but it carries weight. It carries consequence. It exposes truth. Because the moment you say no, you remove ambiguity. You stop negotiating your own limits. You stop adapting to expectations that were never aligned with your values. And in that moment, something very revealing happens. People show you who they are. Some will understand without resistance. They will adjust, respect your boundary, and continue to relate to you with the same level of consideration. These are the ones who value you beyond what you can offer. Others will react. They will question you. They will pressure you. They will try to make you feel guilty. And this reaction is not random. It is information. It reveals that what they valued was not you, but your compliance, your availability, your willingness to say yes without hesitation. This is why no is not rejection. It is filtration. It separates those who respect your limits from those who benefited from their absence. And yet, this is where most people struggle. Because saying no creates discomfort. It disrupts expectations. It breaks patterns that have been established over time. If you have always been available, your absence will be noticed. If you have always agreed, your refusal will stand out. And that discomfort often leads people to retreat, to explain, to justify, to soften their decision until the no becomes negotiable. But the moment you start negotiating your limits, you weaken them. Machiavelli understood that authority is not established through explanation, but through consistency. In The Prince, chapter 19, he emphasizes that a leader must avoid being seen as indecisive, because indecision invites challenge. The same applies to your personal boundaries. If your no can be changed, it is not a boundary. It is a suggestion, and suggestions are tested. This is why clarity matters more than comfort. When you say no without over-explaining, without apologizing unnecessarily, without seeking validation, you communicate something deeper than words. You communicate certainty, and certainty changes behavior. People stop pushing when they recognize resistance. People adjust when they understand there is consequence. Not always immediately, but consistently. At first you may feel tension. You may feel misunderstood. You may even feel isolated. But what you are actually experiencing is the collapse of dynamics that were built on your lack of limits. And that collapse is necessary, because what remains after that is real. Real respect, real connection, real alignment. Marco Aurelio, em Meditações, livro 5, parágrafo 3, reminds that you always have the power to define your own actions, regardless of external pressure. And that power is exercised not in grand moments, but in simple decisions like this: to accept or to refuse, to adapt or to stand, to continue a pattern or to break it. No is not a weapon, it is a structure. It protects your time, it protects your energy, it protects your identity. And once you begin to use it with consistency, something shifts in how you are perceived. You are no longer seen as someone who will always adjust. You are seen as someone who decides. And that decision, repeated over time, transforms not only how others treat you, but how you see yourself. Because every time you say no to what disrespects you, you say yes to your own value. But there is a deeper level beyond this, a level where you do not need to constantly say no, because your presence itself communicates what is and what is not acceptable. And that is where true control begins. The silent strategy. How to stop being used without becoming cold. At this stage, many people make a critical mistake. They swing from one extreme to another. After being too permissive, they become rigid. After being too available, they become distant. After being too understanding, they become cold. But this is not transformation. This is reaction. True power does not come from extremes. It comes from control. The goal is not to become someone unapproachable, emotionless, or harsh. The goal is to become someone who is aware, precise, and intentional in every interaction. Someone who does not need to raise their voice, because their presence already communicates limits. This is where the silent strategy begins. Instead of reacting immediately, you observe. Instead of explaining yourself constantly, you select when to speak. Instead of adjusting to every situation, you decide which situations deserve your energy. This shift is subtle but powerful. You start noticing patterns before they become problems. You start recognizing intentions before they become actions. You start identifying who respects your space and who tests it. And once you see clearly, you no longer need to confront everything. You respond strategically. Silence becomes a tool. Not passive silence, not avoidance, but deliberate silence. The kind that does not validate behavior that crosses your limits. The kind that withdraws attention instead of feeding dynamics that do not serve you. Machiavelli understood that power is often exercised without noise. In The Prince, chapter 23, he highlights that a wise man does not reveal all his intentions, but acts in ways that shape outcomes without unnecessary exposure. This means you do not need to explain every boundary. You do not need to argue every point. You do not need to correct every behavior. Sometimes the strongest move is withdrawal. Withdrawal of attention. Withdrawal of availability. Withdrawal of access. Because attention is a currency. And when you continue to give it to those who misuse it, you reinforce the very behavior you want to stop. This is why emotional control is essential. Not suppression, but control. You feel, but you do not react impulsively. You understand, but you do not excuse everything. You observe, but you do not absorb what is not yours. And over time, this creates a different kind of presence. You become less predictable, but more consistent, less reactive, but more defined. People begin to sense that there is a structure behind your behavior, that there are limits, even if they are not always spoken. And that changes how they approach you. They think before they push. They adjust before they assume. Not because you became aggressive, but because you became precise. This is the balance most people never achieve. They either give too much or withdraw completely. They either tolerate everything or reject everything. But control exists in the middle. It is the ability to engage without losing yourself, the ability to give without being drained, the ability to connect without being used. And this is where you begin to experience something new. You no longer need to prove your value through effort. You no longer need to defend your position through words. Your behavior does it for you. But this leads to a deeper shift, one that is not only external, but internal. Because at some point, you stop explaining yourself altogether. You stop seeking approval. You stop needing to be understood, and you start standing in something stronger, something that does not ask for permission, something that defines how you are treated before anyone even tests it. The awakening, when you stop explaining and start positioning. There is a moment in your life when something shifts, not outside, but within you. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is a quiet decision that changes everything. You stop explaining. You stop trying to make others understand why something bothered you, why something crossed a line, why you deserve to be treated differently. Not because your reasons are not valid, but because you realize something deeper. Respect is not built through explanation. It is built through positioning. For a long time, you believed that if you explained yourself clearly enough, people would adjust. That if you expressed your feelings, they would understand. That if you justified your boundaries, they would respect them. But reality teaches something else. People do not change because you explain more. They change when your behavior leaves them no alternative. This is the awakening. You begin to see that every time you over-explain, you are unconsciously seeking permission. Permission to be respected. Permission to be heard. Permission to be valued. And the moment you seek permission, you weaken your position, because you place your value in the hands of someone else's interpretation. Machiavelli understood that authority is not granted by others, it is assumed and maintained. In The Prince, chapter 18, he emphasizes that a leader must know how to act according to necessity, not according to how he wishes to be perceived. This means your behavior must align with your standards, regardless of how others react. You no longer argue to be understood. You act to be clear. If something crosses your limit, you adjust your behavior. You withdraw, you refuse, you reposition. Not with anger, not with drama, but with certainty. And that certainty speaks louder than any explanation ever could. At first, this creates resistance. People who are used to your flexibility will feel the shift. They may question you. They may test you. They may even accuse you of changing. And they are right. You are changing. You are no longer negotiating your value. You are no longer adapting to maintain approval. You are defining your space. Marco Aurelio, em Meditações, livro 7, parágrafo 16, reminds that your worth is not dependent on external validation, but on the alignment between your actions and your principles. And that alignment requires discipline. Discipline to remain consistent. Discipline to hold your position even when it creates discomfort. Discipline to resist the urge to go back to old patterns just to avoid tension. Because the old patterns will try to pull you back. The desire to explain. The urge to soften your boundaries. The habit of making others comfortable at your own expense. But every time you resist that pull, you reinforce something new. A new identity. A new standard. And over time, this becomes your default. You no longer feel the need to justify your decisions. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your space. You understand that clarity is not harshness. It is structure. And once this structure is established, something changes in how others perceive you. They stop testing as much. They stop assuming access. Not because they were told to, but because your behavior made it clear. This is the moment where you move from reaction to intention. From trying to be understood to being recognized. And with that recognition comes something most people spend their entire lives chasing without ever achieving: real respect. But even with this transformation, there is one final truth that must be accepted, a truth that challenges the deepest part of your identity as a good person. Not everyone deserves access to who you are becoming. The final truth: not everyone deserves your best version. There is a level of maturity that most people never reach, not because they are incapable of understanding it, but because it demands a confrontation with guilt, obligation, and identity. It is the realization that not everyone deserves access to who you are becoming. For most of your life, you were taught to treat everyone with the same level of openness, the same level of patience, the same level of emotional availability. You were told that consistency means treating people equally, that being good means being available, and that withdrawing your energy is somehow a form of wrongdoing. But life, experience, and observation eventually reveal something different. Not all relationships are built on mutual respect. Not all people are capable of handling your best version responsibly, and not everyone contributes to your growth just because they are present in your life. Some people only function well in your life when you remain predictable, accessible, and easy to reach. The moment you begin to evolve, to set limits, to become more conscious of your own value, the dynamic changes. Not because you became worse, but because you became unavailable for misuse. This is where many internal conflicts begin. You start feeling guilty for changing. You start questioning whether setting boundaries is selfish. You start wondering if protecting your energy makes you less kind. But what you are actually experiencing is resistance from a system that benefited from your lack of limits. Machiavelli, in The Prince, chapter 25, explains that fortune favors those who are prepared to act according to necessity rather than sentiment. In other words, reality does not adjust itself to preserve your comfort. It adjusts according to behavior, structure, and consequence. And when your behavior changes, the system around you reacts. Some people will adapt, others will resist, and some will simply leave. But what you must understand is this: their reaction does not define your decision, because your growth requires selection. Not everyone is meant to go with you into your next stage of awareness, discipline, and emotional strength. Marco Aurelio, em Meditações, livro 10, parágrafo 3, reminds that a man must act in accordance with his own nature, even if it causes temporary discomfort or misunderstanding from others. And part of that nature is the responsibility to protect what is essential within you. Your time is essential, your energy is essential, your mental clarity is essential. When you distribute these without discernment, you lose alignment with yourself. And over time, this creates exhaustion that no external validation can fix. This is why intelligent detachment becomes necessary. Not emotional coldness, not rejection of people, but clarity of access. Some people earn proximity through respect. Others maintain distance through behavior. And this distinction is not punishment, it is structure. You begin to understand that your best version is not a public resource. It is not something to be distributed equally to everyone regardless of how they treat you. It is something that must be protected, directed, and invested wisely. Because when you give your highest level of attention to those who consistently misuse it, you dilute your own strength. And when you reserve it for those who respect it, you reinforce your value without saying a word. This is where emotional intelligence becomes power, not in reacting more, but in choosing better, not in explaining more, but in exposing less, not in giving everything, but in giving consciously. And as this awareness grows, something internal begins to stabilize. You stop feeling the need to be universally understood. You stop trying to maintain every connection at all costs. You start accepting that some exits are not losses, but corrections. And this acceptance leads to the final realization. Your value was never defined by how many people had access to you. It is defined by how few people can take advantage of you. The balance between heart and power. At the end of everything, the real lesson was never about becoming cold, distant, or disconnected from people. It was never about rejecting kindness or turning your back on empathy. The true lesson was about balance, because a heart without structure becomes vulnerable, but structure without heart becomes empty. and both extremes destroy something essential in you. What you were really searching for was not how to stop being good. It was how to stop being available for misuse while still preserving your humanity. How to stay kind without being predictable. How to stay generous without being drained. How to stay open without being exposed. This is the balance most people never learn to hold. You are not meant to abandon your values. You are meant to strengthen them with awareness, to combine compassion with clarity, to unite empathy with boundaries, to allow yourself to care, but not at the cost of your own identity. Because the truth is simple, even if it is uncomfortable. People will not always meet you with the same intention you offer. Some will respect your kindness, others will study it. Some will value your presence, others will test its limits. And your responsibility is not to control how others behave. It is to control what you allow. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology gave it a name. In The Prince, chapter 24, he shows that stability does not come from idealism, but from adaptation to reality. And reality demands awareness, not illusion. So you begin to move differently. You do not lose your kindness, but you stop giving it blindly. You do not lose your patience, but you stop wasting it where it is not respected. You do not lose your openness, but you stop confusing it with access. Marco Aurelio, em Meditações, livro 12, parágrafo 1, reminds that peace comes from acting in alignment with reason and nature, not from external approval or universal acceptance. And when your actions begin to align with your internal truth, something stabilizes within you. You become less reactive, more intentional, less available for chaos, more aligned with clarity. And from this place, your presence changes. You no longer need to convince people of your value. You no longer need to fight for respect, because your behavior already communicates it. This is not about power over others. It is about sovereignty over yourself. The ability to choose where your energy goes, who has access to your time, and what kind of treatment you accept without negotiation. And when you reach this point, something becomes clear. The world did not change. You did. And that is why everything around you starts to respond differently. Because you are no longer operating from uncontrolled goodness. You are operating from conscious strength.